against their will if they posed a serious threat to themselves or others. Mayor Adams says the city has a moral obligation to get people psychiatric help, even if they don't want it.
You're watching people standing there on the street talking to themselves, don't have shoes on, shadow boxing, unkept, and we are walking by them. We're pretending as though we don't see them.
Critics of the policy accuse the mayor of playing fast and loose with the legal rights of New Yorkers. A statement from the NYCLU said in part, quote, "The federal and state constitutions impose strict limits on the government's ability to detain people experiencing mental illness." The founder of a homeless advocacy organization says a court challenge is likely. Jackie?
David Lee Miller, thank you. Let's welcome to the show from the Fraternal Order of Police, Joe Gamaldi. Joe, it's always great to see you. I mentioned this in the intro. I walk the streets of New York City all the time. I have somebody almost just gunning for me, like they were going to tackle me on the street. Happened 2 days ago. There was another example of a mentally ill person, as Mayor Adams suggests. You know, they do this shadow boxing. They come over to you. They like almost mock punch you to scare you. This has become commonplace in New York City. Eric Adams now trying to do something about it. The question will be if he's successful.
Yeah, well, nobody should have to live like this. And listen, this is a step in the right direction for Mayor Adams to try to get help for people who are mentally ill and homeless. But forgive my skepticism, because what happens after they're stabilized at the hospital? Are you putting them in a long-term treatment program, or are you putting them right back out on the streets? Because that's not going to solve anything at all. That's just creating a larger problem. And also, is this going to be used as an excuse from DA Alvin Bragg, who is utterly useless, by the way, to not charge people with crimes and to continue to downgrade crimes to the tune of 52%? It continues to surge at 32% in New York City. So, you know, as a society, we have to balance getting people the help they need while at the same time holding them accountable for their actions. Because people in New York City shouldn't have to live with this crime and disorder. I mean, for God's sakes, we just had a 61-year-old man beaten in the head with a wooden chair the other day. I mean, it's reprehensible, and it has to stop.
It has, and it's gotten completely out of control. Another story, we've got a story in the Bronx. A car was stolen. There was a child in it. I'm not sure if this person was mentally ill or not, but a lot of people suggest that we are sort of, you know, playing up this crime narrative in New York City. If you look at, obviously Governor Hochul won the governor's race, but if you look at the House seats, crime was an issue when people were voting, at least in that regard.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, crime is completely out of control in this country. Our murder rate is now mirroring what we saw in the 1990s. Have crime deniers, these so-called journalists and politicians, who are trying to convince the American public that all is well. Well, it's not. And especially in our black communities, where black men are being murdered by nearly double the rate by firearm than we saw just a few years ago. And we continue to see our urban communities besieged by crime. In LA, murders are up 32%. In Phillies, robberies are alone up 37%. Crime is rampant in New York. The list goes on. And I just don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up and understand that we can't go on this. And for all these crime deniers, you know, it's criminal that they are ignoring this, and history is going to judge them for their cowardice and deception.
No, it's a good point. It's impacting other people's quality of life in this city, and so many people have fled. I mean, and they're continuing to flee. It's not just what happened during the pandemic, as they see things are not getting better, improving fast enough. Having said that, one of the problems is down in the subway, right? You robbed, punched, you name it. And now the MTA is saying, well, we need to raise fares. We need to raise fares 29% to regain our pre-COVID revenues. Ridership is down because people are terrified to go down there. And then there's a flip side to this, that if you raise fares 29%, you'll drive ridership down actually even more.
Yeah, and this mirrors exactly what we're saying. We are punishing law-abiding citizens for the actions of criminals. And the sad part is that we know how to fix this. We can flood that subway system with police officers like we have been doing. We can increase arrests. We can make sure we're nailing fare jumpers and people that are jumping turnstiles. We can enforce these laws and get it under control. But the problem is, as soon as we do, we have DAs like Alvin Bragg and every other that are willing to release these people right back onto the streets, and they do it over and over again. I mean, this isn't rocket science. We hold people accountable for their actions.
You regarding trying to put more police out there to to protect people. But having said that, in all those incidents that I just described to you that happened to me personally, there was a cop standing nearby, and I did go over and report it, and they just look at you and they shrug their shoulders. I mean, that's literally what happens. Morale of the police community here is just extremely low, and their hands are tied.
Well, I'm sorry that you had that experience. You know, I really wish the officers would have jumped in there and helped you in that moment. But I can assure every viewer right now, law enforcement is still engaged. Despite the attacks, despite everyone trying to denigrate and demonize us, we're still showing up to work every single day. We'll put our lives on the line to make sure we can protect you and your families.
All right. Joe Gamaldi, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sam Bankman.